We're in the midwest of Western Australia at Walga Rock, an ancient monolith in the goldfields area near the historic township of Kew. From here we're going to travel north to an area rich in natural wonders and also known for its diversity in mining, past and present. So travel with us as we head north to trek around the Pilbara. Our four-wheel drive adventure takes us into a remote part of Western Australia. We see ancient rock carvings, giant iron ore trucks, friendly wildlife, visit the hottest town in Australia and see the Marble Bar, find gold and go underground, travel to the coast and experience the past, discover great campsites, track a huge snake, pick up rare iron balls and onto the most majestic scenery in the Pilbara. Before we set out on our journey, we're exploring Walga Rock. Recent rains have encouraged the growth of wildflowers, giving the surrounding country a village garden look. Walga Rock is a monolith with an uncanny resemblance to parts of Ayers Rock, but much smaller. It's 1.5 kilometres long and 5 kilometres around. Very few people visit Walga Rock as it's off the main route north. As we climb, we disturb a resident herd of feral goats. It's a fairly stiff climb from the bottom up to the top of Walga Rock. It's about 50 metres high, so it's not terribly high, but you get a very good view from the top here and it's well worth the climb. We've found an ancient form of life on top of Walga Rock in this little rock pool. Just take a look at this, it's quite amazing. These tiny crustaceans are commonly called shield shrimps, and their origins date back millions of years. How did they get here? Well, when the pools dry out, the shrimps die. Their eggs also dry out and remain dormant for years until more rains come. In the meantime, the eggs blow about in the dust and get carried away, often to a distant location, to start the life cycle once again. Only about 1 centimetre long, the shield shrimps breathe and move along using 63 pairs of leaf-like limbs. And there goes another tiny creature. It's called a Cypris. The Aborigines of the area have been using Walga Rock as an art site for around 10,000 years, and the paintings here are regarded as some of the best examples of rock art in Western Australia, or particularly in the Midwest here, and I can believe that. The large cave that houses this magnificent gallery is on the western side of Walga Rock, and the paintings include snakes, emus, kangaroos, boomerangs, hand motifs and more. This is my favourite. I just love its colours and its impressive presence as it towers over our heads. And just beside it, something quite different. And this is the mystery ship of Walga Rock. They're not quite sure who painted this. They're not sure whether it was an Aboriginal who'd seen a sailing ship, or maybe it was a shipwreck survivor from one of the old Dutch shipwrecks over on the coast. But it is about 300 kilometres from the coast, so that's fairly unlikely, I would think. As someone else said, it might have been a Chinese cook who actually worked out here at Austin Station. And there's another theory, it could be Afghan camel teamsters. Well, whoever it was, it's still a mystery. Even this so-called writing, or whatever it is underneath here, it's hard to determine whether that's writing or someone says it might be waves from underneath the ship. But anyway, it still remains the mystery ship of Walga Rock. The afternoon sun lights up the paintings, accentuating their vibrant colours. The deep reds are from ochre pits just north of here, and the white clay colours are from nearby breakaway country. The meaning of these ancient artworks have been lost in time, but their dramatic presence overwhelms the visitor. As the sun gets lower in the sky, the Walga Rock Art Gallery takes on a surreal mystical feeling that we will never forget. Somewhere behind this gate, we hope to find a meteorite crater. We're about an hour's drive from Walga Rock on private property. The track has had very little use recently, so we're just hoping it leads to the Dalgaranga meteorite crater that was discovered in 1923. It's one of only 4 proven meteorite craters in Australia, and the least known. Well, we found the meteorite crater we were looking for. As you can see, it's not very big, very hard to find amongst these trees, and there's not too many signs out this way. As you walk around the edge of the crater, you can see how these big rocks have been forced out from the blast. I'd say the meteorites come from that direction, hit the ground and push these big rocks up here. That one up there near the tree would probably be about a 5-ton rock. A lot of force. It would have taken a meteorite weighing a few tons to create this 40-metre wide crater. It feels rather eerie to be standing in this remote spot where something from outer space has landed. Driving east brings us to the historic gold mining town of Kew. In the gold mining boom of the 1890s, Kew had a population of 2,000. Today it's about 400 and relies on tourists who come to see its heritage restored buildings, and some that need a little bit of tender loving care. Behind me here is the Kew Masonic Lodge. It was built in 1899 with corrugated iron, and it's the largest corrugated iron structure in the southern hemisphere. And why did they use corrugated iron? Well, it was easy to transport on camels. And I'll tell you what, if you hurry, you can buy it because it's for sale. The ruins of the old Kew Hospital that was built in 1895 and closed in 1942 are a reminder of the fickle nature of mining. It's either boom or bust. Today's visitors enjoy exploring the town and fossicking in nearby abandoned gold mine workings. 500 kilometres north, just over the Tropic of Capricorn, we find the town of Newman. Unlike Kew, Newman is a booming town, all due to iron ore. BHP's Mount Whaleback mine is one of the largest iron ore mines in the world, and BHP have been mining this mountain of Pilbara iron ore since 1969. When the ore has all been mined, this hole is expected to be 325 metres deep. That's one big hole. Everything here is big. The huge electric shovels scoop 70 tonnes in a bite, and the monster dump trucks carry 240 tonnes. Jobs for over 3,000 people have been created to help mine this high-grade export commodity. You don't really understand how big these trucks are until you stand next to one of them. They're absolutely immense. It's a bit like standing next to a house. And these giant tyres are worth about $20,000 to $30,000 each. So you wouldn't want to have a blowout, would you? And this is what a piece of iron ore looks like. This is in its raw state, of course. It's very, very heavy. And when you're at Newman, don't forget to take a tour of the mine and have a look at Mount Whaleback. It's absolutely spectacular. We're about to take a trip around what's known as the Newman Waterhole circuit. You do need to get a map from the tourist information, and it's 4-wheel drive only, so come and join us. We're now about 70 kilometres from Newman, and this is Eagle Rock Pool, a permanent waterhole in Koondinna Creek along the track that leads into the Ophthalmia Range. It's an incredibly beautiful drive, and as we're only driving slowly, we get a chance to appreciate the countryside. The iron reds of the Ophthalmia Range seem to glow in the hot sun. Well, we've reached Eagle Rock Falls, and that waterhole down there is one of the waterholes on the Waterhole circuit. The fall there is 12 metres high, and behind me here over to the right is another fall that runs only when the wet season's on, and that's 60 metres high. It would be very spectacular when it is running. We're now heading along a different track to the Punda art site on the northern side of the range. Well, this is the Punda Aboriginal art site, and it's fantastic. There's just absolutely hundreds and hundreds of rock carvings right through here. You have to walk through the rocks to find some of the really good ones like this one here. But just look at it, isn't it magnificent?
I don't know if it's a man or not. It's got 6 fingers. There's 2, 4, 6. Maybe it's just a spirit. Look at this one up here.
This area is a special place, and these petroglyphs are thousands of years old. The elaborate images etched into the boulders here depict traditional lifestyles and spiritual beings, giving the place a sense of mystery and power. As we try to guess at their meanings, we find it hard to leave such an amazing, timeless gallery in this most ancient of landscapes. Our next waterhole is a bit more difficult to find, with rocky hills, burning hot stony flats, and a bit of a mud bath along the way. This waterhole here is known as Three Pools. I think that's because the water's in 3 levels. And the water's running down the falls here today, not very fast mind you, but there's a bit of water running over it. It's a spectacular place, but I tell you what, if you haven't got 4-wheel drive experience, don't bring your 4-wheel drive out here because it is a very rough track into here, and it's definitely 4-wheel drive only to get into Three Pools. It's a long, slow drive with more water and mud as we travel with the sun getting lower in the sky. This is Kalamina Pool, and a good time to visit Kalamina Pool is late in the afternoon like it is now, because the sun brings the colours out in the rocks. Kalamina Pool makes an excellent campsite before we continue along our waterhole circuit. Now this is what I call a big waterhole, and it's in the middle of the track along a creek that leads to our next destination. It feels more like we're in a boat in this metre-deep water. But at least it's washing some of the mud off, and it's a good spot to take a break. And there are so many great spots to stop and have lunch or even camp on the waterhole circuit, and this is just one of them. Great spot. The track soon narrows down to almost a tunnel in the trees as we approach our goal, which has the reputation of one of the best spots on the circuit. Well, this waterhole on the waterhole circuit is known as Punda Rockhole. Really, really pretty, as you can see here. Lots of lovely reflections. The road end's a bit rough, but it's well worth it. The shaded walls of the gorge make ideal footholds for the iron ore plant, named because it's always found in high-grade iron ore areas. We've been told that deeper into the Ophthalmia Range, there's a real oasis in this dry landscape. Well, we've reached our last waterhole on the waterhole circuit, and it's called Wheelie Wally Springs, and it's fantastic. Just take a look down there. Permanent water running through here from a series of springs. It's about 5 kilometres long, pools all the way with little waterfalls running through. Magnificent. It could be paradise with fluttering butterflies and tiny fish, smack in the middle of some of the driest red country in the Pilbara. The Newman 4-wheel drive waterhole circuit is a great experience, and it's not to be missed if you're over this way. To continue our trek around the Pilbara, we're heading north from Newman to Marble Bar, the hottest town in Australia. And the road along the way is good gravel. Amazing what you find on the road to Marble Bar. Look at this, old Charlie. Someone's got a sense of humour. They're made out of rocks, so you can really say this guy's got rocks in his head. It's about 300 kilometres from Newman to Marble Bar, and it's time to camp. The Comet Gold Miner Museum is a short drive from the town, so we've dropped in for a look. Margie soon makes friends with a 6-month-old abandoned baby kangaroo that was found by the Comet mine caretaker, Don Piwari. The museum is open, and even though the mine is closed to visitors, Don is kind enough to show us through this historic gold mine. The old gold smelter can still be fired up, and the mine still has gold in it. The mine has a long history, as Don explains.
Comet mine was found in 1936. It had the richest concentration of gold in its time. Yeah, the gold ore was going 10 ounces to the tonne. That's really good. Nowadays they're running a gold mine at 2 grams a tonne.
It's a long time since these dark tunnels echo with the sound of men and picks, or the squeak of trusty wooden hand winches as they lifted up the ore to the surface. These remnants of a past era will soon be displayed in Don's museum. Well, Don, what brought you to Marble Bar?
Oh, I came over here looking for a bit of gold, do a bit of prospecting.
And why would someone come to Marble Bar other than that?
Got me.
Gold has attracted many hopefuls to Western Australia over the past century, and some old-timers had a unique method of seeking it out. A gold divining bent wire in the right hands could find a bit of gold just like today's modern equipment, the electronic gold detector. This detector is in the right hands, as Don shows us how it's done. In old riverbeds, chunks of gold can get caught under rocks and in small crevices, so you need to know the land. A small 2-gram piece like this can be worth $40 or more to the right buyer. And there are bigger ones.
Yeah, this one here, just under 3 ounces. Found it a couple of years ago. That's how it's been found. Hasn't been cleaned up or anything.
Don's gold collection is proof there's still gold in them Nar hills around Marble Bar. A stay in one of the mine cottages ends a great day at the Comet gold mine. Marble Bar is famous as the hottest town in Australia, with summer temperatures of 40 degrees for days on end. And the longest hot spell on record was back in the summer of 1923-24, with 160 days in a row over 38.7 degrees Celsius. It's August and very pleasant, with only 25 degrees today. Marble Bar is a very tidy outback town, with a variety of architecture that's well worth exploring. This is the amazing rock bar that gave Marble Bar its name. It's not actually marble, it's jasper. And you can find it crossing the Coogan River 5 kilometres west of the town. I'm not about to have a cup of coffee. I'm just going to show you how you can make the colour stand out more on the jasper. You just pour some water on. Look at the difference it makes. This extraordinary colourful jasper extends over a large area and is part of a long ridge of jasper. The jasper here is really smooth. It's quite slippery to walk on and you could easily fall over, particularly if your shoes get wet. So if you do come and look at the Jasper Bar at Marble Bar, make sure you don't get wet feet and fall on the jasper. A short drive finds us at the other end of the Jasper Ridge. We're now in a long valley with extensive jasper deposits. If you'd like your very own little piece of the jasper from Marble Bar, don't take it from the area there. It's illegal. You have to come out here to the Jasper Deposit and you can collect some pieces to take home as a souvenir. It's quite a nice piece here. Bit of water on that, it'll look really good. Chinaman's Pool on the Coogan River is a delightful picnic spot, and late afternoon is the best time to see the abundant bird life. White cockatoos dominate the area and leave a lasting impression because of their sheer numbers and noise level to match. We're heading north and it's about 200 kilometres to the coast. The surrounding country is park-like, with a carpet of green growth from recent rains. Well, we've arrived at the coast and the stunning difference between this blue water and the red country we've been driving through is just absolutely amazing. I can now see how the early explorers that crossed Australia must have felt when they reached the ocean after crossing the country. After savouring the salty tang of the sea, we're heading west along the northwest coastal highway. Down there is a historic township of Cossack. It used to be called Tien Sing, after the boat that brought the first pastoralists into the area. The town became a major port for the area, and pearling was very big here. Eventually though, the port silted up and the town just closed up and became a ghost town. Today, Cossack is alive again, to the sounds of tourists who drop in on their round Australia trips to see this historic town that was once a major port of the northwest. The fine old buildings of the past have been restored, and the old courthouse is a must to visit for those would-be judges who would like to try a little sentencing of their own. Margie Leyland, I sentence you. All in fun, of course. Here you can be judge and jury, and it's only a short walk to the old Cossack jail, where you can complete the fantasy and send the accused straight to jail. You're in.
I want to get out.
I doubt it would have been much fun for the real inmates of Cossack jail back in the 1800s. A walk through the Cossack cemetery reveals a lot of the old town's history. This section here is the Japanese section. I imagine a lot of these people that are here would have been pearl divers or associated with the pearl industry. They were tough times back then, as the headstones record. Small children died. Whole families drowned in the rough passage that was the entrance to the port. And it looks so innocent and calm today. Cossack is a historical treasure, a place to fish or just reflect, with the ghosts of the port's past not far away. An hour's drive west from Cossack brings us to Dampier and the Burrup Peninsula. The Burrup Peninsula is a large finger of land that points northward. It has beautiful beaches and mountains of giant red rocks that look as if they've been dumped in heaps from a huge tip truck. Hidden in a labyrinth of rocks and gullies are over 10,000 recorded petroglyphs, making it the oldest and most spectacular outdoor art gallery in the world. They're believed to be older than the Punda rock art we saw 450 kilometres inland, and they do have a similarity, with a predominance of spirit figures and animals, and in particular the kangaroo, which we found on dozens of rock faces. As the sun gets lower in the sky, we can understand why there are so many kangaroo engravings. The rocks and surrounding grassy gullies come alive with kangaroos. It's amazing to see how agile they are on the rocky mountainside. It's a unique area, but it's time to leave this magic spot to the kangaroos and the spirits of the rocks and continue our trek around the Pilbara. We're travelling from Dampier down to Millstream National Park, and we're using the road that follows the Hamersley Iron Railway line. It's a very good gravel road and it's a bit shorter than the other track, but you do need to get a permit, which you can get from Hamersley Iron in Dampier. The road we're travelling on has been built to service the railway line that is used to transport iron ore from Mount Tom Price Mine 300 kilometres to the port of Dampier. These trains stretch over 2 kilometres long, making them some of the longest in the world, and they just seem to go on and on. We take a break in a dry creek bed, which turns out to be a good spot for a fossick. What I've got here is something that's quite unique to the Pilbara. These are pyrite balls. They're very rare, in fact, only found in this area, and you find them in areas where there's a lot of shale or slate. And this sort of slate here. They're actually a crystal that's formed inside the slate, and the compression of the slate makes the crystal form into a ball rather than into a hexagonal or a square shape. So these are pyrite balls, very, very rare. That one's not quite round. You can see the actual crystallisation in that in a close-up. Here's one that's broken in half. You can see the centre of it there. Apparently a perfect example of these are worth about $100 each. So it's almost like looking for gold. 100 kilometres south from the coast brings us to Millstream-Chichester National Park. The early settlers must have thought they had struck gold in this oasis in the Pilbara. Most of the 200,000 hectare park is rolling spinifex hills like it is here in the Chichester Range. It's a park of diverse landscapes, as we're about to discover. We're driving around the range to Pyrite Pool. This is a stunning drive, very narrow road, with spectacular scenery all the way, both sides of the vehicle. And it's worth pulling up at some of the little lookouts because you get a really good view over the plains and valleys and hills over there. Pioneers with their camel teams camp beside the permanent freshwater of Pyrite Pool, and today it's still a popular spot. At nearby Snake Creek, we settle down to enjoy a magnificent Pilbara sunset. The old Millstream Homestead was built in 1920, and today it's used as a visitor centre. Millstream Station was established in the late 1800s. It covered 1 million acres and carried 55,000 sheep. The homestead was built next to the Chinderwarriner Pool, a permanent spring-fed oasis. We're walking around the Millstream Homestead walking trail. It's a very pretty walk, and you can really understand why they built that homestead right here. This area was also a campsite for the Injibati Aboriginal people, and the Millstream area still has great significance to them. Park Ranger Jamie Burney offers to take us into a restricted area to see a primeval forest of ancient palms, It's like stepping way back in time.
These are Millstream palms, Liverstonia alfredii. They only occur around the Pilbara in a few areas. They're a leftover from a much wetter era many years ago when this area was a rainforest. These would have been common right throughout the area. They're still here now that we've moved into drier times and are survivors.
Tracking snakes that have microchip transmitters embedded in their skin is also part of Jamie's job.
Okay, well we're basically tracking Pilbara olive pythons. They're considered to be possibly a rare snake. Nobody knows much about them. It appears that they return to this area to mate in this particular area because all the snakes we've been tracking have been gradually working their way back to this particular piece of countryside behind us here.
This dry snake skin is a sign we're getting close.
And the skin would have come up around the top.
The snake we're looking for is about 4 metres long, and the tracker indicates it's under our feet. The beeps we can hear are the snake's transmitted heartbeats. He's hiding inside that hole there. I think this might be the closest I'm going to get to the Pilbara olive python, in that hole. Very dark, but you can actually see him in there. On closer inspection, we find there are 2 olive pythons, the male we've been tracking and a female companion. It seems we've disturbed them at a delicate time.
And these snakes can take a very large animal for food. Take a Euro joey, one perhaps 16, 18 inches high, out of the pouch.
Jamie fills out a logbook on the olive python, recording his location, time, heart rate and temperature, and he usually measures the snake, but today he leaves the mating couple in peace. Besides, Margie's not too keen on 4-metre snakes anyway. On Jamie's advice, we're now travelling around the scenic Snappy Gum Drive. The white gums beside the road are the snappy gums, and apparently the limbs snap off easily, hence the name. The drive is very picturesque and leads to some great campsites on the Fortescue River. This magic spot is Crossing Pool, just part of the Millstream Delta, a real oasis in a dry landscape. We've chosen to camp at Deep Reach Pool, a few kilometres south, and it's a gem of a campsite. It's a good place to try the fresh food we bought in Dampier. This is what travelling all over the countryside is all about. This is the best time of the day, as the colours of the landscape seem to glow brighter as the sun sinks lower. Millstream is a photographer's dream, and the view from Crossing Pool Lookout at sunset is hard to beat. It's 180 kilometres from Millstream to Wittenoom on a good gravel road. Wittenoom is famous for all the wrong reasons. It was a blue asbestos mining town. It's now a ghost town with only a handful of people living here. There's not much left of Wittenoom today, the old blue asbestos mining town that's now been closed down since 1966. For 20 years the town prospered, and even in 1980 the town's population was about 900. It was then discovered that tragically many of the miners were diagnosed with cancers caused by asbestos dust then inhaled. The town was closed and most of the buildings have been removed. The few locals that have stayed on claim it's safe today, and tourism born of curiosity is on the rise. At the gem shop you can see some relics of the town's past, and the signs around the town warn travellers of the risks. Even so, morbid curiosity entices the traveller to see the gorge that holds a potential invisible killer in the air. It's well worth taking a drive up Wittenoom Gorge because you get to see some of these great little pools. It's quite pretty up here. Try and pick a day like today with no wind to blow the dust around, just in case. The pools all have names such as Rock Pool, Garden Pool and Magazine Pool, where the explosives were kept for the mine. The road ends just before the mine site, and in the distance we can see some innocent-looking buildings that were part of a death sentence for many that worked here in the 50s and 60s. It's decidedly peaceful today, but it's hard to get that sign out of our minds. We're soon on the road again, and this time we're on a sealed section that passes through the eastern side of Karijini National Park. Karijini National Park is Western Australia's second largest and encompasses more than 600,000 hectares. It's set in the Hamersley Range in the very heart of the Pilbara, and it has a reputation of housing some of Australia's most awesome scenery. We're heading into the high plateau that's dissected by breathtaking gorges. The gorges of Karijini are like huge cracks in the earth that meander across the iron-red landscape. These mighty fissures have been created over millions of years by water gradually eroding through the hard rock base. A good place to see the effects of water on the country is here at Fortescue Falls. The descent into Dales Gorge is relatively easy and very popular. Fortescue Falls are the only permanent falls in the park and are on the must-do list. From the track in, we get our first sight of the falls. It feels like we're entering a lost world. The cascading water is mesmerising. Nature's own water display beats any man-made fountains we've ever seen. Now there's a good vantage point. I think I'll join them. This is what I really call a front row seat. A short walk upstream from the falls brings us to a more tranquil setting. This pocket of paradise is called Fern Pool. A cool world of greenery and cascading falls, and it's regarded as the real gem of Karijini, the most picturesque setting in the park. It's hard to believe that this lush area is in a dry landscape that's only 100 metres or so up above on the gorge rim. You can get some spectacular views on the walk around Dales Gorge. There's some great lookout points. The scenery here is so good it's hard to imagine it gets better, but we're told it does. Our next gorge is said to be just a taste of things to come. This is Kalamina Gorge, and here at the head of the gorge we're treated to a delicate waterfall in a cool grotto. The water flows into a large pool fringed with reeds and paperbarks. It's about 3 kilometres down the gorge to Rock Arch Pool, the point where we have to stop as the area beyond is impassable. The park is home to about 90 species of reptiles and amphibians. We disturb a small but very fast rock-hopping lizard. It's a wonderful walk down the gorge. We started out very cold while we had our jumpers on. Then it got very hot, so we've taken them off. It's August and the weather can change quickly. And in the shady areas of the gorge, it can get quite cool. So it pays to be prepared. Every bend in the gorge reveals another stunning postcard scene. Isn't that just fantastic? Incredible rock colours in the afternoon sun. We have to hop from side to side of the gorge to avoid walking in the deep pools, and sometimes it's hard to remember which is the way back. Late afternoon is the best time to be in Kalamina Gorge, as the glow from the afternoon sun reflects from the high cliffs into the clear, tranquil pools, creating a kaleidoscope of colours. And this is as far as we can go. Rock Arch Pool. And what a climax to our walk down this ancient gorge. As you're walking through the gorges of the Pilbara, you'll come across this wonderful tree here. It's a native fig, and you can see how it's hanging onto the rocks there. Great shade tree. This is Wittenoom Gorge, and we're winding our way down to see Handrail Pool. We're deep down in the iron-rich rocks of the Pilbara. I climb up higher to get a fly-on-the-wall view as Margie negotiates a narrow crevice. It's just like a set from some adventure movie. But this is not man-made. Nature has created this dramatic gorge. After rains, this is a swirling cauldron of foaming water that builds up as it tries to squeeze down these narrow rock corridors. It's about a 600-metre walk from the car park down to the bottom end of Wittenoom Gorge. When you get down here, it's only about a metre wide, very eerie. This is no place to be if you're claustrophobic, or if it's been raining upstream. This is as far as you can go without taking a plunge into the freezing cold waters of a handrail pool. Believe me, it's worth every step to see this unique part of the Pilbara. Back on the surface, it's hard to imagine that Wittenoom Gorge is right beside the walking track. From Oxer Lookout, we can view the convergence of four mighty gorges. This is a 2 billion-year-old landscape, and it's all here, waiting to be explored. Some of the gorges can be more dangerous than others. They've been graded from easy to experienced and fit walkers only. So what am I doing here? Grade 1 means steep and slippery, and sometimes a ladder to help over the loose surfaces. This is Hancock Gorge. It's a little bit more difficult than some of the ones we've been in, but we're going to persevere and have a look, see what's around the corner. And just around the corner is a deep pool of water. The only way to continue is by climbing up higher and walking around the cliff edge on precariously narrow ledges. At this point, Margie decides to sit this one out, while I continue exploring Hancock Gorge. It gets the adrenaline pumping as I manoeuvre along the ledge with the camera in one hand. It looks like an impossible task. With careful footsteps, I finally reach an open space of amazing beauty. Alone, I feel like an ant deep down in this awesome landscape, almost like I'm on a journey to the centre of the earth. From here on, it gets really tricky. The gorge is narrowed down to a seemingly endless serpentine crevice. I wedge the camera beside rocks to get these shots. The water-polished stone is like smooth glass and very slippery. I've decided it's prudent to stop here and retrace my steps back to where Margie's waiting. I have to say, this is one of the most unforgettable experiences I've had while travelling all over the countryside. We like to get an early start in the mornings, when the light is at its best for filming. Having looked at some of the gorges from the ground, we're now going to take an armchair view from the air. Karijini is a powerful and timeless place, one of the Earth's oldest landscapes. There is nothing like this anywhere else in Australia. From the air, the country looks rugged and dry, with harsh brown mountains that break into long jagged cracks in the earth, oozing a sense of primitive beauty. It's hard to imagine that there are cool gorges with lush green grottos and tumbling waters hidden in that dry-looking landscape down there. At the western side of Karijini National Park is a gorge that highlights this ancient land, with complex geological rock formations and amazing colours. We've just climbed down into Hamersley Gorge, and the colours here on the walls are really great, and there's a lot of folded rock over the back there, all twisted and folded. It looks really amazing. Further up here is what's known as the spa pool. It's supposed to be very special, so I'm going to see if I can find it. A few hundred metres walk upstream brings us to a narrow section of the gorge. On the other side of this large pool, we find the entrance to the much smaller spa pool. Even though the sun is out, the water is much too cold to have a swim. In summer, this would be a great spot to cool off. The view from the spa pool is stunning. It's hard to imagine the energy that it must have taken to fold that rock around just like a lump of plasticine. It's absolutely amazing what nature can really do. It really is a geological masterpiece. Or it could be abstract art. Nature's art is definitely here to stay, but it's time for us to leave this wonderful place and head a short distance west. We've just got one more thing to do. Check out this big Sheila. Mount Sheila, just outside the National Park, is only a small dot on most maps, but we've been told it offers a great panorama of the Pilbara. Even though the narrow road is sealed, it's four-wheel drive only because of the steep gradient. Once used as the transmitter station site, it's now the highest accessible place in the area that's open to a vehicle. Well, I must say, this Sheila does give you a very good view of the surrounding countryside, and this is where we're going to end our trek around the Pilbara. It's taken us 18 days to get here. We've travelled 3,600 kilometres and we've used 652 litres of diesel, and it's been a fantastic trip through the Pilbara. We've really enjoyed it. And if you're ever over in Western Australia, make sure you do look at the Pilbara. It's a great piece of countryside.